This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. This is a very special edition of the Impact because we've got Rees with us. He's the Vice President of Workplace Services and the Head of ESG at Agilent Technologies. Welcome to the Impact Podcast, Neil.
Thank you, John, and thanks for the opportunity.
And you know, Neil, I'm sitting here in Fresno, California, and we're so lucky to have you. You're sitting in the UK today, and thank you for staying up a little extra late to be with us today. And you know, before we get talking about all the interesting things that you're doing and important things at Agilent, can you share a little bit about your background, how you even got here?
Yeah, sure. So I have been with Agilent for 34 years.
Wow.
And you know, it's an interesting thing. My kids, they're in their early 20s. They're like, "Wow, sorry about that, Dad. You know, what happened? You know, you're not any good. Does nobody else want you?" But actually, you know, it's been a privilege. You know, Agilent is a mission-driven company. We'll probably kind of get into that. And you know, I've had a wonderful ride for 34 years. I started in finance. That was my first 15 years was in finance. And then the company asked me if I'd like to look after the corporate real estate and environmental health and safety. So I moved across and has done that for kind of the subsequent years. And the particularly the environmental health and safety piece kind of led me into the world of ESG. Yeah, lived in the UK for most of that, but got to spend 4 years with the family in California. Then we moved to Singapore for a while, and then back to the UK. So it's been kind of multiple careers in one, despite the 34 years. Yeah,
but 30. It's so funny you said that because I have children also in their 20s and 30s, and that generation doesn't understand starting somewhere and staying there for long periods of time. That the generation of our children seem to move around a lot more than we moved around, huh?
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Yeah. Although, as I say, I feel like although I've been in the one company all that time, I've had different roles, different jobs, different countries.
Right.
So and that's the beauty, I think, of a company like Agilent. It is. It's very focused on talent development, very focused on providing opportunities, mission driven, which I love. It's been fabulous. Don't regret a moment of it.
So you're now the Vice President of Workplace Services and the Head of ESG.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about when was that role created for you? Because obviously, like you said, you've had a huge breadth of experience there. But that title itself is, how many years are you into that title?
We formalized our ESG program about a year ago. But prior to that, it was corporate social responsibility. Prior to that, it was kind of more known as environmental health and safety. So, I've had certainly the environmental sustainability piece of that, throughout, so that's the last 17, 18 years. But it's really, as I say, in more recent years that, we've started to use the term ESG. Agilent was spun out of Hewlett-Packard in '99. So, right from that point, we've been publishing corporate citizenship reports. We've been publishing our environmental data, for more than 20 years now. And so, we felt it was time to maybe move that into I guess today's vernacular, with our ESG program.
We're going to get to that a little bit because you bring up a fascinating point about today's vernacular with regards to what it was called 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So let's talk about sustainability though, as a general overall concept. Why was and is sustainability important to Agilent, and what is your specific role and contribution supposed to be as the role was created?
Yeah, so it's super important to Agilent. Our mission, advancing the quality of life. I mean, you can't have a mission like that as a company, and not be thinking about, sustainability.
Right.
So that's why, it's always been on our minds right way back to, say when Agilent was spun out. And, I feel the workplace services role that I've had is been really the perfect platform for that, because that's all of our corporate real estate. It's all of our scope 1, it's all of our scope 2, it's all of the energy we consume at our sites. It's my role includes travel, which is scope 3, but that's a big part of it. Car fleet, is in my organization. It's been very useful to have the two roles combined, because it's kept the ESG role quite grounded, because I know, when I take off my ESG hat and put on my workplace services hat, I've got to go deliver this. The team's got to find solutions and technologies and things to meet these commitments. So it's actually been a very kind of nice conversation, nice kind of combination.
Right. And then you have a help lab. So explain what the help labs does to advance sustainability at Agilent.
The labs, the customer labs.
Yes.
Yeah. So, one of the interesting things, so we supply a large part of what we do is supplying analytical instruments into labs.
Okay.
Most labs around the world, you will find one or more Agilent instruments. But we have cancer diagnostics and things too, which we'll get into, but on the lab front, what is interesting about most analytical labs is they are very heavy consumers of power. You've got all of those instruments, you've got all of those fume hoods, you're circulating high volumes of air, through the lab. So they consume a lot of energy. The nature of a lab often, not always, but often says that they're dealing with nasty chemicals, either coming in or kind of going out, with waste and that type of thing. And so, compared to an office or a hospital, or even kind of heavy industry, a lab in context is actually a huge consumer, and 85% of lab managers have sustainability goals. And typically as part of their own net zero commitments that their own companies have made, and so we see an important part of our contribution, if you like, is not just how Agilent is operating and our own net zero goals, but how can we help our customers? How can we help them improve the sustainability of their lab? And we do that through a couple of different mechanisms. One is, we obviously want to make sure that our products, our instruments, consume as little energy as they can, that produce as less waste, consume as little packaging as they can. And so we have a program we call Design for the Environment. We want to make sure our instruments are designed, with the whole life cycle in mind, including recyclable materials and that type of thing. So that's one piece of it. The second is just helping the lab manager run the lab more efficiently. What is interesting is when you think about asset utilization, our instruments generally in a lab are utilized about 35%, have 35% utilization. And most lab managers, only about 4% of lab managers actually even have optimization data, available to them. So another piece of what we're trying to do is to help lab managers with the utilization, the optimization of all of the instruments in their lab, not just Agilent's, but all of the other universe of instruments. We have analytics, we have software, we have tools that help them get as much as they can out of the instruments. And it's kind of really cool stuff. There's artificial intelligence in there that tells them, is an instrument not performing properly. It measures the power supply, that kind of stuff. So anyway, long story short, John, it's all about, labs are heavy consumers. There's a real opportunity in here for us to help our customers.
So you help them achieve their goals, and therefore that creates even more stickiness with them and Agilent.
Correct. Yeah. Now we're supporting. We're doing these data analytics if they want for all of their instruments in the lab, not just So it's not sticky in that sense. We'll support competitor instruments, but yeah, if we can help them achieve their net zero goals and other environmental goals. That's obviously great for us and great for them.
If you've just joined us, we're so excited to have with us today Neil Rees. He's the Vice President of Workplace Services and Head of ESG Programs at Agilent Technologies. To find Neil and his colleagues, you could go to www.agilent.com. www.agilent.com. Neil, how big is Agilent, by the way? How many employees do you guys have around the world?
17,000, roughly.
17,000.
Yeah, in about 30 countries around the world.
So your role, Vice President of Workplace Services and Head of ESG Programs. Now, I've had the honor to interview hundreds upon hundreds of leaders in sustainability and ESG over the last 15 years. Would this be considered, the chief role of ESG or chief sustainability officer role at Agilent? Is that what you're doing? And then you have, people underneath you championing the protocols and programs that you've created?
Yes, that's totally right. I'm heading up the ESG program. We think about ESG as really a thread that runs through the whole company. Again,
part of your DNA. It's part of your DNA.
Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, exactly. It's part of our mission. And so, we have purposely not created some huge ESG program office,
right? Because
we want the responsibility for ESG to be down in our manufacturing operations, in our R&D organizations, in our sales organizations, because we feel that's more authentic to how we operate as a company and how we can kind of achieve our goals the best.
Wow, but talk about the challenges and the opportunities. Obviously, you're the leader now of these very important initiatives, and 17,000 people, though, that's a lot of people to communicate to. So talk about how do you leverage technology and other methodologies to communicate among the 17,000 people and ensure that this ESG is part of your DNA and everyone is executing towards that to make the company the best that it can be always?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we are a very matrixed organization. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
That's the way that kind of we operate. I would actually say the challenge is not getting the ESG word out to all the employees because they're an emission-driven company. They know about our focus. ESG sits right in there. If anything, our challenge is to kind of contain all of the groundswell of ideas and efforts and opportunities that they're coming up with, because we've embedded it in all the organizations. It's not like we need to be constantly kind of pushing out the message. It's more of a pull, quite honestly. So we have the opposite problem. Nice problem to have. A lot of 17,000 very creative, very focused employees. All wanting to do to make a difference.
Take it one step further, though. You have clients, and obviously you're trying to help your clients reach their net zero and other goals that they have within. How much feedback do you get back from your clients, Neil, with regards to how to better help them so you create more products and services that can be more even relevant to your clients as well? Is that a constant process as well, getting feedback from your clients as to their needs and wants with regards to your services and technologies?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I would, what we have seen from our customers over the last 5 years or so, initially from the procurement organizations in those customers, is they've been asking us, what is Agilent's goals? What is Agilent's net zero plan? Because they only want to do business and they only want to have their supply chain with companies that are committing to net zero, because obviously we become part of their kind of scope 3. Now, the big change that we have seen over the last year or two is now not the procurement department, but the lab managers saying, hey, I've been tasked with making my lab more sustainable. My company has a net zero goal. I know my lab is a heavy consumer. How can Agilent help me? And so that's what we're seeing. We're getting customers inviting us to kind of round tables and work sessions to help kind of brainstorm on what we can do to help them.
Got it. Neil, when I started up my company, my most recent company was about 2004. ESG wasn't part of our vernacular. It wasn't even part of the lexicon of vernacular, both here in the United States or anywhere I would travel. It was then sustainability was becoming a thing, chief sustainability officers, and that had its moment, when Al Gore won Nobel Peace Prize for Inconvenient Truth. But then it sort of it went up for a while, but then as the 2008 crisis hit and other challenges hit, it sort of waned. Now it seems as though these 3 or 4 issues of ESG, the movement from the linear to circular economy, the net zero goals are here, and not only here, but here to stay, not only with great leaders like you and great companies like Agilent, but from the financial institutions, the BlackRocks of the world, and other traditional legacy financial institutions are greatly supporting this whole movement of linear to circular economy and ESG. What do you think about this? And do you think it's finally here to stay? And what does ESG definitionally mean to Agilent? Because it means so many things to so many people. So it's interesting to hear your interpretation and Agilent's interpretation of what ESG means in 2022.
Yeah, so I think it's here to stay. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Interestingly, there is, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, a little bit more noise about, is this the end of ESG? Because, maybe there's going to be a recession, there's inflation. Right. The ground war in Europe is causing, consumption of coal to go up,
right.
But, is that a short-term blip? I think so. I honestly think that companies and employees that work for them, will want to continue to be focused on companies that are doing good in the world.
I agree.
And so, that's our focus. We don't want to really get caught up in acronyms and things. What we do in Agilent is, it comes back to our mission. Advancing the quality of life. We want to do what we can to make sure that we run our business in the most sustainable, ethical way, that we're providing great opportunities for our employees, safe environments to work, diverse environments to work, and we want to help support our customers do that same thing. So those, if you like, are our guiding principles. We won't hopefully get kind of detracted by the proponents that would take us off one direction, or the detractors that would say, hey, this is a load of baloney and you're wasting your time. We want to do good as a company, but we're in business to
Of course, you got like I always say to people, you can't make the world a better place or advance the quality of life as per your mission without making a profit. And there's no shame in saying that. There's no shame at all. But talk about that, Neil. Obviously you've been at Agilent for 34 years, so you have a fascinating and sort of, let's just say, ringside seat to the company's, total progression. And how do you go about choosing what opportunities to tackle first, and how do you structure that and make your goals in terms of 22, 23, 24? Because someone like you who has that kind of breadth of experience, obviously all the strong suits and strong points of where Agilent plays in, but also where you need to shore up. So how are you choosing, and how are you and your colleagues choosing what to tackle first and on your sustainability and ESG journey?
So we recently put solar panels on our manufacturing site in Shanghai, in China.
Wow.
And we based on the kind of resources and things that were available at the time, it was a choice, China or California, let's say. Now the reality is that the grid in China is significantly dirtier than the grid in California, which is, 50, 60%, even maybe it's even higher now, with kind of hydro and renewables. Whereas, in China, the grid is, I don't know, 95% coal or something. So, we're based with that, situation, we said, hey, we're going to put it on the roof in China. That actually has a much bigger impact on our carbon footprint. And it sends a great message to our employees in China and hopefully to our customers and others in China, so, kind of way more impactful. So that's kind of how we weigh up decisions on kind of what we're going to do. It's really about what has the biggest impact. As I said, we get tons of ideas from our employees, and which is a nice problem to have. And that we sort through them and you figure out what's our strategy.
So I know. I've obviously I did the homework on you and Agilent, and I know you're working on and about to release in the near future your ESG hub and report. Explain what went into the making of that and when it's coming out and where our listeners and viewers and fans can find that report and enjoy it as well.
Yeah, so it's coming out the end of this month. They can find it on agilent.com. I'm sure it'll be right there on the homepage. We, as I said, we've been publishing a corporate sustainability report for kind of 19, 20 years now. We're transitioning to ESG. What that means for us is we are adding additional disclosures. So, following our net zero announcement last year, this year we're going to include the task force, the TCFD, the task force for financial disclosures. So we're going to have more data in there for people to comb through. We're going to tell people about our 4 Ps. So, our whole ESG strategy in Agilent is driven on our 4 Ps, people. That we want to have a great, diverse workforce because we need that to continue to innovate and develop new technologies, solutions. And our products touch, almost everybody on the planet in some, when you think about we're analyzing to make sure people have clean water, safe food, the cancer diagnostics, so we touch, almost everybody on the planet in some shape or form. So that's people. Our products I talked about, that's our 2nd P, and how we're giving our customers products that are not only more sustainable, but they then go do amazing things with those products. They're advancing battery technologies, they're measuring greenhouse gases, they are working on cancer, personalized medicines, and that type of thing. So that's our products, and then we have the planet, of course. All of those things combine, to make not just the environmental sustainability, but the social side of the planet. Again, back to our cancer diagnostics. Where we're really in this world where you can understand and sequence DNA, and then there's prosperity. That's our 4th P. And you mentioned, a little bit earlier about, there shouldn't be any shame in kind of being in business to kind of make money. And, we view it as shared prosperity. So, we obviously want to make money as a company. That's the only way we can invest in continuing to, evolve all these amazing technologies. But, we think of prosperity beyond wealth, people having good healthcare access, clean water, basic things, safe food to eat. So that's how we think about prosperity. That's our 4th P. So back to your question, our ESG report is going to lay out those 4 Ps and provide some stories around what we're doing to contribute to each of them.
Neil, I'm very excited for that to come out, and I'm so glad. And like you said, our listeners and viewers can find it on agilent.com at the end of this month, which is July 2022, just for people's reference. And this show will air very soon before it comes out. But someone like you, with all the experience you have, and with a great brand like Agilent, you're always wanting to make things better. What are you thinking about next year? What's on your agenda for the 2nd ESG hub and report? Are you already formulating it, and have you already laid out the plan for the team for your 2nd ESG hub and report?
Yeah, good question. No, as the short answer. We're just getting through the hurdle of this one, and then we'll start to think about next year. I will say, maybe at a higher level, I think we want to continue to tell a story about how Agilent, is contributing, and how we're enabling our customers to contribute, because it's not just about our ESG story and our carbon commitment. Because we're providing technologies and products that enable our customers, to not only reduce their carbon footprint or meet their goals, but those technologies then go on to kind of help support the planet. If I can give you an example of something that I think is just kind of fascinating. Obviously deforestation, is a big issue in the world, and quite a bit of that deforestation, is being caused by tropical rainforests being torn down to grow soya, palm oil. And that's becoming a real problem for the food industry. And I think it was just last week or so I saw the CEO of Unilever and Nestle, I think it was, write to the Financial Times, both committing that they're going to stop deforestation in their supply chain by 2025. And so that then begs the question about how you're going to do that. The palm oil, soya, those are commodities that are grown halfway around the world. They go through multiple intermediaries and commodity exchanges. How do you know what you bought isn't indirectly or directly the cause of some big kind of deforestation? And so this is where Agilent's technology comes in. We're working with University in Belfast on this ability. You can kind of sequence the soybeans, and from that, from the DNA and that, you can tell exactly where they came from, what their provenance was, and did they come from where they said they came from. And so it's those kinds of things, technologies that we're kind of introducing into the to try and solve some of these problems. Saying no deforestation is a fabulous thing, but how do you do that? And so much of the ESG journey, particularly on the E, I suppose, is reliant on technologies that don't yet exist. If we're really going to get to 2050 and net zero, or hopefully earlier. So that's just kind of one example where we're going to help the food manufacturers really trace the source of their soybeans, their palm oil, and help them with their commitments.
Pre-COVID and now hopefully in a post-COVID world, do you travel a lot and get to see a lot of your employees in different countries, in different settings? Is that part of what you do, or how does that really work in terms of the breadth of experience that you get? Even though I know you lived in the UK for many years, and in California and Singapore, is traveling part of what you do as well?
A little bit, yeah. We are trying very hard not to travel, obviously. And the great thing I would say about, if there's any silver lining out of COVID, and I'm not sure there is, but if there is one, it's that, we've all learned to do much more, with video and that 100%. Type of thing. And so, we have leveraged that hugely as a company. I think that naturally there is going to be some travel that starts. We've been restricting travel, but there's going to be some that comes back, but nowhere near, how we did travel, pre-COVID. So, will I go out in my workplace services role to look at a construction site? Probably, because you can't do that so much over video. But can we support our customers through video? We think so. One thing is very interesting for us is we've invested in virtual training labs. Because a customer buys an instrument, they need to be trained on how to use it. In the old, if I can call them the old days, they would jump on a plane and fly to a training center. Now, we've equipped some kind of TV kind of broadcast type studios in some of our big sites. And now we can kind of broadcast that training to the customer. And guess what? They didn't want to get on a plane in the first place. They're very happy.
Exactly. And you save massive carbon footprint, expenses for your clients. That sounds like a wonderful win for everybody, including the planet.
Yeah. And we're doing some augmented virtual reality for our, we have folks that go out to repair instruments. But now, we can give the customer an app. They can put on their VR goggles, they can look at the instrument, and we can say, well, tweak this here and pull that over there, and you may be able to fix it, and it'll avoid us having to come out. So it's terrific. This is the way of the future.
Yeah, but obviously the future is bright for Agilent. What's next? Can you tease us on anything that's coming up? Any new or anything new that you're excited about that you could tease us about in terms of Agilent and new products and services you're coming out with?
Let me see. I think it's going to be just continuing on the path that we've been on. I mean, we have some great new things, in our kind of cancer kind of diagnostic area. That's important stuff. That's something that's super cool. Last year, we acquired a company called Resolution Bioscience, up in Seattle. They, I shared with you in my own layman's terms the whole kind of biopsy thing where you take space and you stick it under. Guess what? Now through Resolution Bioscience, you can take a blood sample, so you don't have to do that whole invasive. It's called a liquid biopsy, and it works on the basis that even cancer cells ultimately break down and can be found in the bloodstream, and so you can do a liquid biopsy. Just take a blood sample, you can analyze it. You can identify, kind of diagnose, what kind of cancer, and so that's something that's super cool, that's going to just advance the whole cancer diagnostics business, even further. And it comes back to personalized medicine. I honestly think this is the age of biology and sequencing and genomes and that type of thing. The way that you can sequence things and really you identify the best treatment path. It gets you the treatment faster, more effectively, saves money. What's not to like?
I love it. And Neil, thank you so much for being with us today and coming in from the UK. He's Neil Rees. He's the Vice President of Workplace Services and Head of ESG Programs. You can find Neil and also his new ESG Hub and report and his colleagues at www.agilent.com. Neil, you're doing such great work. Thank you for advancing the quality of life, making a huge impact with Agilent, and making the world a better place for all of us.
Thank you, John. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com.